Are we going to the big elevators, Daddy?
Yes, sweetie, stay close to me.
Okay.
The elevator doors were closing, sealing the fate of Mark's career, or so he thought. Inside that glass box, ascending to the 45th floor of the prestigious Sterling Tower, the air was so thick with tension you could almost choke on it. Standing in the corner, clutching a worn-out teddy bear, was 5-year-old Lily, her eyes wide with innocent wonder. Beside her stood Mark, a man whose hands were calloused from years of scrubbing floors, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. And standing opposite them, looking like a statue carved from ice and marble, was Elena Sterling, the billionaire CEO who had never been known to smile. But the silence shattered when little Lily tugged on the hem of Elena's $1,000 skirt, looked up with watery eyes, and whispered the one word that stopped the world spinning, "Mommy?" Before we dive into the moment that changed 3 lives forever, and the answer Mark gave that brought a billionaire to her knees, take a quick second to hit that like button if you believe that love can be found in the most unexpected places. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that touches the heart. Trust me, you are going to want to hear how this ends. To understand why a janitor was in the executive elevator with the CEO, we have to go back to 5 a.m. that morning. Mark's alarm clock hadn't just buzzed, it had screamed the reality of his life. He was a single father, a widower, and a man hanging on to stability by a very thin thread. His wife, Sarah, had passed away 4 years ago, leaving him with a newborn, a mountain of medical debt, and a hole in his soul that nothing could fill. Mark worked 2 jobs. By day, he worked at a construction site, and by night, he was the head janitor at Sterling Enterprises. He barely slept. He barely ate. But when he looked at Lily, with her messy pigtails and her gap-toothed smile, he knew he was the richest man on earth. But today was a disaster. The babysitter, Mrs. Gable, had called in sick with the flu. Mark had no family in the city, no backup plan, and he couldn't afford a daycare drop-in center. He had already missed 2 shifts this month due to Lily having a fever, and his supervisor, a man named Mr. Henderson who seemed to enjoy firing people, had given him a final warning. "One more slip-up, Mark," Henderson had sneered, "and you're back to the unemployment line." Mark couldn't lose this job. The health insurance from Sterling Enterprises was the only thing covering Lily's asthma medication. So, he made a desperate choice. He packed Lily's coloring books, her juice box, and her favorite teddy bear, and smuggled her into the skyscraper. The plan was simple. He would set Lily up in the unused supply closet on the 14th floor, a room big enough to be a small office, ventilated and safe. He would give her the tablet with headphones to watch cartoons, and he would check on her every 20 minutes while he cleaned the floor. It wasn't perfect, but it was survival. For the first 3 hours, it worked. Lily was an angel, coloring quietly while Mark buffed the marble floors of the lobby and emptied the trash bins of the junior executives. He was exhausted, his back aching from the construction work earlier in the day, but he kept moving, motivated by the drawing Lily had handed him that morning. It was a stick figure of him and her, holding hands under a big yellow sun. Trouble struck around 8 p.m. A pipe burst in the executive washroom on the top floor, Elena Sterling's private floor. Panic ensued. Mr. Henderson was screaming into his radio, looking for Mark. "Get up to the 45th floor now. The CEO is working late, and there is water everywhere." Mark's heart dropped. He couldn't leave Lily alone on the 14th floor for that long, but he couldn't say no. He ran to the closet. "Lily, sweetie," he whispered, kneeling down, "Daddy has to go fix a big mess upstairs. You have to stay here, okay? Do not open the door for anyone." Lily nodded, clutching her bear. "Okay, Daddy. Will you be fast?" Mark kissed her forehead. "Faster than a rocket ship." Mark rushed to the elevator, his mop bucket rattling. He reached the top floor and got to work. The water was everywhere. Elena Sterling was nowhere to be seen, likely in a meeting or out for dinner. He worked frantically, soaking up the water, fixing the seal on the pipe, and sanitizing the area. He was efficient, a ghost in the machine of the corporate world. But as he was finishing up, wiping the sweat from his brow, he heard a sound that made his blood freeze. The elevator dinged. He turned to see the doors slide open. But it wasn't Elena Sterling stepping out. It was Lily. She had gotten scared. The battery on the tablet had died, and the dark closet had become terrifying. She had remembered Daddy went up, so she pushed the button for the top floor. She stepped out onto the plush carpet of the executive suite, looking tiny against the floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the city skyline. "Daddy," she called out softly. Mark dropped his mop. "Lily. I told you to stay put." He rushed toward her, terrifying visions of being fired racing through his mind. But before he could reach her, the double oak doors of the boardroom swung open. Elena Sterling walked out. She was a woman of 35, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, her dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. She was known as the Ice Queen of the industry. She had taken her father's company from bankruptcy to billions, sacrificing her personal life, her friendships, and her softness to do it. She didn't tolerate incompetence, and she certainly didn't tolerate children in her workplace. She stopped dead in her tracks, seeing the janitor and the small child. Her eyes narrowed. "What," she asked, her voice cold and sharp, "is the meaning of this?" Mark scooped Lily up into his arms, his face burning with shame. "Miss Sterling, I am so sorry. My babysitter cancelled, I had no choice, I'll leave immediately. Please, just let me finish the shift later, I need this job." He was rambling, pleading. Elena looked at him, then at the child. She stepped closer, her expression unreadable. She looked like she was about to call security. But then, Lily wriggled in Mark's arms. She turned her head and looked directly at Elena. Lily's eyes went wide. She stopped crying. She reached out a small, chubby hand toward the CEO's face. "Mommy?" Lily whispered. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. Mark froze. Elena froze. The receptionist behind the desk gasped. Elena blinked, her icy demeanor cracking for a split second. She looked at the child, confused, almost offended. "Excuse me?" Elena said. Lily pushed out of Mark's arms and dropped to her feet. She ran over to Elena and hugged her legs, burying her face in the expensive fabric of the CEO's trousers. "Mommy, you came back. Daddy said you were an angel, but you're real." Mark was mortified. He rushed forward to pull Lily away. "Lily, stop. That's not Mommy." "I'm so sorry, Miss Sterling, she's confused, she's just a child." He gently pried his daughter away, who began to cry, reaching out for Elena. Elena stood there, brushing her pants, looking shaken. She stared at Mark, her eyes searching his. "Why?" she asked. Her voice wasn't angry anymore, it was quiet. "Why does your daughter think I am her mother? I have never seen this child in my life." Mark looked at the floor. He knew this was the end. He was going to be fired, and he was going to have to explain his personal tragedy to a stranger. It's complicated, ma'am. I'll just pack my things." Elena raised a hand. "No. You're not leaving yet. Come into my office. Bring the girl." It wasn't a request, it was an order. Mark swallowed hard, took Lily's hand, and walked into the lion's den. Elena's office was massive, smelling of orchids and expensive leather. She sat behind her desk and gestured for them to sit. She didn't call security. She didn't call Mr. Henderson. She opened a drawer, took out a small box of Swiss chocolates, and slid them toward Lily. "Eat," she said softly. Lily sniffled, took a chocolate, and looked at Elena with pure adoration. Elena turned her gaze to Mark. Now. Explain. And don't lie to me. Why does she call me mommy? Mark took a deep breath. He realized he had nothing left to lose. My wife, Sarah, she died in childbirth, Mark began, his voice trembling. It was sudden. An embolism. We didn't have much time. We were young, and we were struggling. We didn't have smartphones back then, and we lost everything in a house fire a few months before Lily was born. All our photos, our wedding albums, everything was gone. Elena listened, her fingers drumming on the desk. Go on. When Lily got old enough to ask where her mommy was, Mark continued, tears welling in his eyes, I didn't know what to show her. I didn't have a single picture of Sarah left. But Sarah had a dream. She wanted to be a businesswoman. She admired strong women. She used to buy this one business magazine every month, just to read about women who changed the world. Mark reached into his back pocket and pulled out a tattered, laminated piece of paper. It was folded into a small square. Sarah kept this on our fridge, Mark said, sliding the paper across the mahogany desk. She used to tell her belly, before Lily was born, little one, you're going to be strong like her. You're going to be beautiful and powerful like her. After Sarah died, I couldn't bear to tell Lily that her mother was gone forever. So, when she asked what mommy looked like, I showed her this picture. I told her mommy was a queen who had to go away to build a castle for us, but she was watching over us. Elena slowly reached out and unfolded the paper. It was a magazine cover from 5 years ago. Forbes magazine, and on the cover, standing tall, confident, and fierce, was Elena Sterling. Elena stared at the image of herself. Then she looked at the man in the janitor's uniform, and the little girl eating chocolate who believed with all her heart that Elena was the woman from the story. You told her I was her mother? Elena asked, her voice barely a whisper. I told her her mother looked just like this, Mark corrected gently. And honestly, Ms. Sterling, Sarah did look a bit like you. Same dark eyes. Same determination. It was the only way I could give Lily a face to dream about. I never thought we'd actually run into you. We're invisible people, Ms. Sterling. Janitors don't meet CEOs. The room fell silent. Elena looked down at the magazine cover. She remembered that photo shoot. It was taken the week after her divorce was finalized. It was taken the week she found out she could never have children of her own due to a medical complication. She remembered feeling hollow, pretending to be strong for the camera while her personal life crumbled into dust. She had built this empire to fill the void of a family she could never have. And now, here was a man who had used her image to give his motherless daughter hope. Elena stood up and walked to the window, her back to them. Mark prepared himself for the yelling. I understand if you want to sue me, he said. Or fire me. I know it's weird. I'm sorry. Elena turned around. There were tears streaming down her face. The Ice Queen was melting. She walked over to Lily and knelt down on the expensive carpet, disregarding the chocolate stains on Lily's hands. She looked Lily in the eye. Lily, she said, her voice shaking. I am not your mommy. Your mommy is in heaven, and she is an angel, just like your daddy said. Lily's face fell. Her lip quivered. But, Elena continued, taking Lily's small hands in hers, I think your mommy sent you to me. Because I have a lot of room in my heart, and it's been very empty for a long time. She looked up at Mark. You're not fired, Mark. In fact, Mr. Henderson is going to be hearing from me about the way he speaks to my staff. Mark was speechless. Ms. Sterling. We have a company daycare on the second floor that is reserved for executives, Elena said, standing up and wiping her eyes. Starting tomorrow, Lily is enrolled there. At my expense. And Mark, you're too smart to be scrubbing floors. I need someone in logistics who understands how this building works from the ground up. You're being promoted. Mark broke down. He buried his face in his hands and wept, the stress of 4 years releasing all at once. Lily, not understanding everything but sensing the relief, hugged Mark, then ran over and hugged Elena again. This time, Elena hugged back. She closed her eyes and held the child tight, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in a decade. The story doesn't end there. Over the next few years, the dynamic in the Sterling Tower changed. Mark thrived in his new role, his work ethic propelling him up the ranks. Lily grew up running through the halls of the building, often sitting in Elena's office doing her homework while Elena ran board meetings. They became a family, not in the traditional sense, but in the way that matters. Elena didn't try to replace Sarah. She became Auntie Elena, a mentor, a guardian, and eventually, something more to Mark. It wasn't a fairy tale romance that happened overnight. It was slow. It was built on shared coffees, on late nights at the office, on weekends at the park. But 5 years after that elevator ride, Mark and Elena stood at an altar. Lily, now 10 years old, stood between them as the flower girl. In her hand, she didn't hold a bouquet. She held that old, crinkled magazine cover. When the priest asked Mark why he loved Elena, Mark didn't talk about her money or her power. He looked at the guests and said, "I love her because she saw a janitor and a little girl hiding in a closet, and instead of calling security, she built us a home." Elena took the microphone, looking at Lily and Mark. "And I love him," she said, her voice strong, "because he taught me that success isn't about how high you build your tower. It's about who you let inside." The lesson Mark and Elena taught the world that day is simple. You never know the battles people are fighting. A CEO might be the loneliest person in the room, and a janitor might be holding the world together with nothing but a magazine clipping and a promise. We are all connected by our need for love, for family, and for hope. So, the next time you see someone who looks like they have it all, or someone who looks like they have nothing, remember this story. Remember that a simple question, "Why does your daughter call me mommy?" can unlock a lifetime of healing. If this story touched your heart, please hit the like button. It helps us share more messages of hope with the world. And don't forget to subscribe. You never know, the next story might just change your life.